And the French contingent stayed there the whole week. And they were a lot of inspiration for the rest of our group to keep going and hold, even more, step it up a notch even. They inspired us quite a bit. And then the second day was, we said, well, let's go to or it was second or third day, forget now, I'm getting confused, but we said, let's go to where the buses were supposed to pick us up, and let's hold a demonstration right there. And that's what we ended up doing. And then right after that, we went over to the UN World Trade Center building. Had I thought one of the best demonstrations that we would have there. We had meetings that were being facilitated very well going on during the demonstration. It was kind of a central location for that day of a lot of activities being stemmed off of that location there, once again right on the Nile, near the embassies. And we always kept going back to check on the French contingent, give them support, everything, throughout the week. And then we began deciding, well, and we'd have meetings throughout the day at different hostels. There were people under hostel arrest, we called it, because the people were we kept sending other carloads towards the border. There were people under house arrest in Al Arish, which is in the Sinai. There were people being blocked from leaving the Sinai and getting detained and all this stuff. Throughout that whole week, people kept sending different people, just trying to challenge, see what's going on. And some people got a little frustrated, said, well, we're going to try going directly to the border. So there's a lot of that going on too. But most of the people stayed back in Cairo, at least for the first week. And then leading up to the actual march on the 31st of December, we decided to, there was a lot of organizing and meetings that happened with this, but in the end, we decided to march. Since we weren't going to be able to march in Gaza with over 50,000 Palestinians, we decided to hold the march in Cairo, and those Palestinians that wanted to also march in conjunction, and also there was solidarity actions throughout the world. Syracuse, New York, for anybody who's from Syracuse. I'm from near Syracuse. And there's in Madrid, in Paris, in San Francisco, in New York City at Times Square. There's a whole bunch of Chicago. Yeah. And that was in conjunction with the actual march on the 31st. And so what we decided to do, since you're not allowed to be in groups of more than 5, there were a whole bunch of ideas which are really cool, really interesting and creative ideas to try to, how do we actually then do this march given these circumstances. And it ended up deciding to be, we would form the march spontaneously, quote unquote, and it kind of swarmed together as bees to this location here right near the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. And the idea to me at first sounded like, well, I don't know, probably not gonna work. But when it came time to actually do it, it actually worked out very well. People just started swarming from all over. And then just this march kind of spontaneously started. And we got about, I don't know, 6 blocks or something. And then the military showed up, and there were people having passive resistance to them, trying to pull them off the streets, arrest them, or whatever. And that got pretty brutal. There was a lot of club action, a lot of fists being thrown at, pulling of the women's hair to yank them out. But people held on to each other really well. People held the line actually very well, I thought. And they ended up quarantining us off in this small little park area. And people started climbing the trees, putting banners up, because they would blockade you so that people would not be able to see what your demonstration was all about. So you had to try to be creative and letting people know, what you're doing, what's going on. And the civilian population in Egypt was totally supportive of every action we were doing. We would have school children on their way to school help us with sign making. We would have just public transportation just yelling out windows. People were honking, going nuts sometimes. I mean, it was great. the support was really felt great as well. But anyways, the march started going, and there was a lot of brutality there. And then I decided to then break away from the larger group with some of my friends and people I met there to go to the West Bank and take part in demonstrations there and actions going on there. And there was a lot of things going on in Tel Aviv. There was there were, I don't know, a few thousand people marching to support Palestinian rights. There was a demonstration at the wall. People put up ladders on the wall and started climbing over. They got arrested. But in some of the actions I also took part in the West Bank on Bethlehem, there was a parade / protest / march and / rally. And POTA was a part of that, one of the main organizer of that. And we decided to join in on that. And anyways, I went to, also was kind of just going around the West Bank and experiencing a lot of things. I went to Jericho. I went to Nablus, which is really the center of the peace movement in the West Bank. And I went to Hebron, which has one of the more violent settlement histories to it, and it's very violent there today. And when I was there, everything's closed down in Hebron. So you go down their markets, quote unquote. There was one guy making bread, and there was a women's organization that had opened up shop, I don't know, for a couple days out of the week. But mostly it was empty, and everything was closed down under military rule. The people that we ran into, the Palestinians there, were more hospitable than any other place I have been to personally. They would, a family invited us right into their home to have tea and talk about what they're experiencing. They were the first thing they wanted to do was tell you what's going on, especially people from the United States. They loved the fact that people from the United States were going to the West Bank and going to a place like Hebron to try to understand what's going on and witness it and take pictures. They were trying to encourage taking pictures, take pictures, bring it back. And they were telling you exactly, pretty much they were telling us how to organize, and because they have a lot of practice with it. But their family that I visited, we had tea, and a lot of the stuff actually in their home had been confiscated. The settlements are being built directly on the markets and even directly on Palestinian homes, on top of, literally. And the settlers are more vicious than the military. There is what you'll find. And they literally throw their garbage down on top of the Palestinians. So the Palestinians had to find a way to try to stop this. So they set up a mesh fence roof along their markets, along their alleyways, so that they would catch a lot of this garbage. And then we found whole chairs being thrown down. You name it, you'd find it. And there were also, as you walk along the streets, and we had just a lot of kids coming up to us, telling us, just telling us exactly what's going on, what we're seeing, and or what we can't see, because coming from the outside and going into Palestine and anywhere, it's really difficult because you don't know the terrain or what's going on. So, for example, they would tell us, well, we're not allowed on these certain roads, and just going and seeing, going there without knowing that, you wouldn't be able to see that was the case necessarily. But they would explain to you, don't go near the road, you might get hit or shot at or something.